It's a felony, and you can be charged with murder if you are giving something to someone that is the cause of their death. And he actually knew that the drug he gave her may have been laced with something, because there's evidence of it in the phone, of someone warning him that there was something in that batch of drugs. So, but he still gave it to her anyways. Meagan was my only child. And she was a fun child. I mean, we both loved scary movies, and Halloween was her favorite holiday. Hocus Pocus was her favorite movie of all time. I bet we watched that movie probably 50 times together. One of the greatest loves that we shared was for dogs. We loved helping animal shelters. That was a huge passion for both of us. I would say around the time Meagan was 12 is when it really clicked for her what her passion was in life. And her passion was when she picked up a softball and immediately fell in love with the sport. When she was about 16, she was playing in a high school softball tournament, and something just didn't quite feel right with her back. We found out through testing that she had fractured 3 places in her back, L1, L3, L5. And it was the actual facet joints. And what it's called is a pitcher's injury, where they flex their back from pitching. So she had those 3 fractures. Well, being the age of 16, the doctors didn't want to do surgery. They wanted to put her in a permanent back brace for a few months. So they did. And it completely broke her heart, because she was in the middle of her varsity softball, and, she was the starting pitcher. Throughout her process of her back healing, she, was taking the pain medication. So she got through that. She went back to pitching. At that point, they weaned her off the medication, and she went more towards seeing pain specialists that would do back and steroid injections in her back to help with the pain that she was having still. So her goal was she was going to play, not only finish her competitive softball career, but also move on to college. And I'm proud and to say that she did fulfill her accomplishment of going to college, playing softball. She got through 2 years of college, and then her back pain just became too much. So she came home and finished at a local college. Then she started admitting, what she had been battling for years. And I felt bad because I had no idea. I had no idea she was battling that, and she came back, got a job, working at a sporting goods store, got a promotion to brand ambassador for Nike. She loved it. She was doing great, and then it comes that one negative person in her life, which was a boyfriend. And so she started battling her whole pain pill addiction again. It got to the point where we ended up having to send her to local rehab to a couple of places. And then she asked us to go out of state. She wanted to get away from all of it. And so she went to rehab in Florida. She was there for about a year. And then she came home. She was doing great again. She had a great sales job that she had been at for like a year and a half. So everything was going good up until, I would say, about March of 2018. And I started to see new people in her life. And they weren't the crowd from church or the usual crowd that I knew of friends. So I was kind of suspicious and confronted her about it, which I could tell something was going on again. it was a Sunday morning, April 22nd. We were on a kind of an exercise routine with dieting and everything. She was going to get up early and go to the early church service that morning. So I got up very early, about 7, and went to the gym. And I had stuck my head in her room to make sure she was awake, getting ready. And I said, I'll be back in about an hour. I said, I'll go to the early church service with you. So I left. Well, my husband, her dad, he left for church. He did volunteer security. So he left about 8:45 that morning to go to church, and which left her alone at 8:45. So about 9:15, I came back in the house, and her bedroom door was open. So I come down the hallway, and I kind of peek my head into her bedroom, and I noticed that she is, laying over in her bed. Well, I thought she was just asleep. She was a very hard sleeper. So I walk in her room, and I realized, right away that something's wrong, because she's kind of slumped over and her lips have kind of started to turn blue. And I realized right away something's not right. So I have to immediately call 911. And they tell me that I need to get her to the ground to start CPR on her. So I have to move her body, dead weight and everything, to the ground off her bed. So I get her to the ground and I start CPR. And I've never done CPR on anyone, so, and especially being your own child, it's like, at that point I'm a wreck, so, but, the operator's talking me through it, and they tell me that the paramedics are on the way. It took about, I think, 10, 12 minutes for paramedics to show up and take over. And they tried giving her Narcan 3 times, and it didn't revive her. And at this point, like I said, things had been going well with her. And it didn't dawn on me at first that this was an overdose. It's like and I think it's just the panic of the moment. It's like, what's wrong with her, And they start asking me questions about what she's taking. And so I show her all her medications that she's prescribed. But I tell them she's had a problem with addiction with opiates, but I said, I don't know if this is the case, because she's been doing very well. So the paramedics work on her. They get her in the ambulance, and, we get her to the hospital, and they tell me at this point, they're like, there's hope. We have a faint heartbeat when we got her here. So they end up admitting her, and she was there from Sunday to Wednesday. So the 22nd through the 25th. They work on her, they try to freeze her body where it'll freeze the organs to try and get it to come back to life. And then on April 24th, they declared her brain dead. And, sorry. At that point, they asked me what her wishes were for organ donation. So I told them, I said, well, I never really talked about it, but I said I know she would want to, because that's just the type of person she was. She was so giving. She would do anything for anyone. And I know that's what she would want, is to save other lives if she could. So they were able to donate her organs, her heart, her kidneys, and her liver. So she saved 4 other lives. Since I lost her, my whole world was shattered. Because Meagan was my world. She was my only child. And I pretty much lived for her, you know? So at that point, you know, it's like, what now? You know, it's how do I survive this? And it was hard. It still is hard, you know. Being 6 years now, it gets easier, but it never goes away. The heartbreak's always there. The triggers are always there. You learn how to navigate it. So, you know, after we lost Meagan, there was an investigation into her death. And in the state of Oklahoma, there is a law that it's a felony and you can be charged with murder if you are giving something to someone that is the cause of their death. And in this case, he actually knew that the drug he gave her may have been laced with something, because there's evidence of it in the phone of someone warning him that there was something in that batch of drugs. So, but he still gave it to her anyways. So the investigation started and they had her phone, which showed the whole transaction with his phone. And in the city of Tulsa County, it was the first one to actually go to jury trial to try him for first-degree murder. And then they had him a second charge of distribution of the deadly substance that created cause of her death. So it took 3 years to get all the way through to jury trial. And they find him not guilty of murder, which can imagine the devastation that we felt after all we had been through. Me being one of the main witnesses, I had to take the stand, which was, you know, hard in itself, telling that story of finding her and trying to save her several times. So when they said not guilty, of course we're devastated. But then they found him guilty on distribution. Once the juries come back with their verdict, then the prosecutor comes in and says, okay, here is the true story of what this guy has done before. These are his previous felonies. You know, so they introduced all this to the jury. The jury was devastated. Some were crying. Some were like, and you could look in their face was like, oh my God, what did we just do? We let this guy off. And he's, you know, going to get out there again and do this to somebody else. And usually a judge he'll do the sentence of what he thinks that is appropriate. In this case, the judge is like, no, this is going in the jury's hands. They came down with this verdict and they are going to give the sentence. So he sent them back to deliberate on it. They came back with 60 years. Life is 45 years for murder. 60, you know, all this time I'm just praying to God, you know, it's in with my faith, it's like, okay, God, this is in your hands. I'm going to trust that you're going to do what's right here. And he did. I mean, he didn't get the murder sentence. He got 45 instead of 45. He got 60 years for distribution, because there's different rules for distribution, and they go by how many felonies that you've had previously. So the jury could sentence him as many years as they wanted to. So so he's in prison now for 60 years. So the overall take on this whole story is that addiction can start with something, but it can lead to stronger things, you know. And now, unfortunately, it's fentanyl that is so strong that you can take something not knowing what's in there, but in reality, it can be like 2 grains of salt in that pill that you're taking that can kill you. And the other thing is, the awareness of Narcan. I wish so much that I had had the knowledge of what Narcan was. I had never heard of it when I was dealing with this whole addiction with Meagan, that I wish that I had known what it was. I had had it in my house. Because to this day, I regret that not knowing what Narcan was. What if I had had it that day? What if that moment I had walked in her room, if I were able to use it and save her life? I just don't know. But one of the many what ifs, that I battle through. But so if anything, I hope that helps another parent, and lets them know, hey, maybe I should carry Narcan, just in case, save a loved one, save, who knows, your child's friend or a stranger. I just want other parents to know that it can happen to you.